What are you making today, Miss Martha? I'm making dumpling two ways. I'm making a savory dumpling and a sweet dumpling. My sweet dumpling are blackberry, my savory dumpling are mushrooms. So I'm going to make up the dough. It's split into two batches because one's flavored for savory and one's flavored for sweet. As usual with Miss Martha's recipes, all of my ingredients and the directions will be listed down under the description of the YouTube digital cookbook channel that I have. Let's get started showing you how we're going to make up the dough, because that's got to be put into the refrigerator. Let that chill a little bit before I roll it out. I'm using a pastry flour. You could use regular all-purpose flour, but I found this one today and I'm going to use this today. For my shortening, I'm using a butter flavored Crisco. Like I said, everything's going to be vegan today. Just a little bit of salt, a little bit of baking powder, and a little bit of oat milk. That'll be my dough. Once I've got it formed into a dough, I'm going to split it in half because I've got to measure out enough. I'm going to be making, I've got two of my, I've got two little lasagna size pans, so I'm going to be using perhaps maybe 20 dumplings per pan. So I need to make up a good amount of dough here. For my savory dough, it's going to be flavored with the everything bagel mix, and my sweet dough will be flavored with a little bit of sugar and some cinnamon and allspice. So that's the pastry part of the dumpling. Blackberry dumplings are really, really simple. I've got blackberry bushes growing out in the backyard back there on the other side of the fence behind the garage, because they have thorns in them, and I don't want them where my chihuahuas could, walk by and get stabbed with a thorn. But when the blackberry season rolls in, I'll be making these every Sunday after church. But right now, my blackberries came from Wegmans. So I've got fresh blackberries, obviously, a little plant-based butter, and a little bit of sugar. Now, how simple is that? That's the filling for the blackberry dumpling. When I have made the dough and I've rolled it out and I've portioned it out, and you've got about the size of a dessert plate, and you put your little scoop about the size of an ice cream scoop of your filling in there, you pinch them up and you put the pinched upside down to the bottom, so the nice, pretty, smooth top is the top of your dumpling. That's how you're going to plate it up into the pan for baking. I have to pour a little sauce on top of them so they don't dry out, and the top sauce will be a little bit of plant-based butter, some coconut cream, a little bit of sea salt, or a little bit of raw sugar. And that will be melted down on top of the stove over there in a little saucepan and cool down. So by the time I've got everything in the roll ready to go, we'll put that on the top in the oven to bake. Also, now over for the savory side, the filling, I've got to go ahead and drain out. I've got some cannellini beans and some green peas. We'll drain those off, put those aside. I have a couple different kinds of mushrooms here because that's the star of the show. Instead of, you could make this and you could use chicken, or you could use a possible meat if you wanted some meat in it, or you could use a little bit of pork, you could use steak. You can substitute what you want to, but I'm being vegan today, so my savory element is going to be mushrooms. Now, if I'm doing chicken or something, or if I'm doing beef or something, I'm going to cook that a little bit ahead of time before I make it into the dumpling, so everything cooks all the way through. I'm not going to just throw some raw chicken inside this pastry, because you'll get sick on that. Don't do that. You got to boil it on top of the stove like you were stewing the chicken. Take it out, cool it down, cut it into little chunks like you're making a chicken pot pie with pastry in it before, if you were using meat. But we're not. We're doing vegan. I've got some baby bella mushrooms, some shiitake mushrooms, and just some basic white petite mushrooms. I'm going to cut those up just a little bit smaller. I'm going to rinse them, cut those up, set those aside. I'm not going to rinse them, I'm going to brush them off. You don't put water on your mushrooms, you brush them off if you didn't know that. That's your cooking tip for the day. I have some fresh broccoli here. Beautiful. I'm not going to use the stalk part, I'll save that back for a stock. I'm just going to use the little tops here and cut those down to smaller bite-sized pieces. Everything's going to be cut down into like a sugar cube size. Okay? I've got some spring onions here. Some fresh little sweet peppers, and some celery. I'm not using all of this. My husband, he'll take you about 4 stalks of celery a day, and that's his little lunch to nibble on because he's, watching his weight. But I'm going to use some of the celery out of here. Like I said, proportions will be in the description. So now the celery, the peppers, and the onions are going to go into a saucepan, a skillet on top of the stove, and I'm going to have some plant-based butter in the skillet. Let that melt. Add in my diced up celery, onions, and peppers. Saute those enough till they start turning clear. The onions get kind of translucent in there. And we'll add a little bit of salt, a little bit of Worcestershire, some basil, some Chinese 5-spice goes great with mushrooms, a little bit of the already minced garlic because Miss Martha hates to peel and chop garlic. My poor little arthritic thumbs are going to get workout rolling out the dough. I didn't need to have to sit here and try to peel and chop garlic as well. And a little bit of vegan bouillon, which is vegetable bouillon. You could use, if you were doing a chicken one, you could use chicken bouillon. If you were doing beef, you could use beef bouillon. So I'm going to try to keep everything, this will be my filling, the base of my filling, and it's got to be thick. It can't be runny like pancake batter, and it can't be runny like pancake syrup. It's got to be thick, almost like cookie dough, so it will stay when I add back in the other ingredients to it. So I have to thicken it up. I have some tapioca flour. So I've got to play with water and tapioca flour and that till I get it to a nice thicker consistency, which I'll show you when we get to the skillet. And then we will add everything back in, and we'll roll out our dough, the dough that's been flavored with the everything bagel for the savory dumplings. And we'll put a scoop in there, close it up, and that's got to have a little sauce on top of that too, so they won't dry out while they're baking. So in a little skillet, saucepan on top of the stove, there'll be coconut milk, some garlic powder, some more country plant butter, not a sponsor. We'll mix that together till that's a nice creamy little consistency, and we will pour that or brush that on top of the savory dumplings, and we'll sprinkle a little Tuxedo because they're pretty, sesame seeds on top of that. So I've got to make the dough, I've got to chop up the vegetables, I've got to saute the other mushrooms vegetables over there. I've got to go ahead and make the sauce for the blackberry dumplings, and then we'll be assembling everything. So one of the longer part of Miss Martha's videos is usually the beginning, explaining what needs to be done, in case you want to just cut it off there and you don't have to watch me do everything, and you think, okay, I'm good enough, I can take it from this part, and you can't. Just watch through the ingredients and then print out the transcript of the video, and you can go from there. You don't have to sit there and watch a 20-minute video. Although I wish you would, because sometimes weird little thoughts will pop into my head, and I'll go, oh yeah, I remember back in 1973 when we went blackberry picking with Uncle Casper up there at the pond, and I found a little tick. And you know, the best way to get a tick off in the older days used to be put some camphor on it. And I don't think they make camphor anymore, because I used to make the tick back out. But you know, little southern tips like that will sometimes just random. That's why the videos run long, because Miss Martha's misses her family that's working, and I'm home alone right now, and you're my company. So thank you for tuning in. I hope you'll like and subscribe to videos. You go get yourself a cup of coffee. I got to get some stuff organized here, and we'll pick back up in just a few minutes. God bless you, and thank you for watching. Hang on, I'm coming back. Okay, let's recap. Miss Martha is making a savory and a sweet dumpling today. My savory dumpling is a mushroom dumpling, and my sweet dumpling is a blackberry dumpling. I have two separate kinds of crust, because one's a savory crust and one is a sweet crust. Now this is going to be the dough that I'm going to make up for the dumpling for the blackberries. It's got 3 cups of the pastry flour, a half teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, a half cup of the buttered flavor Crisco vegetable shortening, because everything's vegan, and a little bit of like a half teaspoon of cinnamon and a half teaspoon of allspice. I'll use enough oat milk, which is probably going to be a 1/3 cup, to make it into a dough. We'll put that in the refrigerator to chill. This is going to be the dough for the savory, for the mushroom and vegetable dumpling, and it's got the same ingredients, except instead of the sugar and the cinnamon and the allspice, it has in the everything bagel. It's got 3 tablespoons of the everything bagel, and it's got a half teaspoon of garlic powder. I'll also be using the oat milk to make that into a dough, and we'll put that in the refrigerator to chill. Let's pick back up on what we have for the stuffing. These don't have to be cooked. This is the mushroom, the broccoli, the drained cannellini beans, and the drained green peas. I'll pull you over to the stove and show you the rest of the dishes that I've got underway. Over here we have some of the plant-based butter, and we have our garlic, our spring onions, and the celery that have been diced. There's a little bit of the, there's 2 tablespoons of the vegetable bouillon because we're going vegan, and 2 tablespoons of the minced garlic, 1 cup each of the vegetables, and 2 sticks of the plant-based butter, 1 teaspoon of basil, and 1/2 teaspoon of the Chinese 5 spice, 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. We'll cut this on in a minute when I can pay attention to it. That's going to be the other half of the filling. Once I have blended this all together and the onions have gone clear, we're going to take it off the heat and add the other half of the stuffing for the mushrooms in it and set that aside. That will go into the savory. Over here is the topping for it, which I've got to thicken this up, reduce this. This is 1 can of the coconut milk, 1 stick of the plant-based butter, and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. This is the topping for the sweet. For the blueberries, this is coconut cream, not coconut milk. 1 of the little small cans of the coconut cream, 1 stick of the plant-based butter, and it has 3 tablespoons of sugar, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon and allspice. So 1/2 teaspoon cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon allspice, so 1 teaspoon of spice in that. That's going to be the syrup, the simple syrup that's going to go on top of that. Let's go back over to the other side. I'm going to make the dough, but my hands are going to get messy because I'm not going to use the KitchenAid and the dough hook and stuff like that because that's just something else extra I have to clean. I'd rather just have to wash my hands off real quick. But I'm going to go ahead and mix my dough up and we'll pick back up. Okay, it took a 1/2 cup, not a 1/3 cup of oat milk. I guess it's because oat milk is thinner, more watery than cow milk, but you know, we're vegan. This is the dough for the blackberry, the sweet. This is the savory dough for the mushroom vegetable. Let's pick up over at the saute pans. Okay, I'm watching 3 different skillets right now. I've got the filling sauce bases for the savory, the topping for the savory, the topping for the back burner for the sweet. So, I'm busy. I'll see you in a minute. Okay, I'm going to add the tapioca roux, which is just the flour with a little water to thicken up my filling for the mushroom savory dumplings. Okay, I've greased my pans with a little sunflower oil, so I should be able to get about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 3, about 15. So I've got to take my dough. This is the savory dough because they're going to take longer to bake. I need to get those in the oven first. I need to cut them into thirds and then cut each third into 5 pieces so I can get 15. So I'll work on that. Done my math and I measured them out. I'll go ahead and I'll cut them into each individual piece. Make a ball out of it and I'll roll it out as thin as I can get it. And I'll stuff it, make a dumpling out of it. And we'll put them in the pan over there with the top side where it's sealed down to the bottom so we have a smooth surface on top. I'll get moving on that. I had to move the camera out of the way because I need the counter space. So it should be about the size of a dessert plate, about that thickness. Okay, I roll all 15 of them out. The reason I roll them all out ahead of time is so I can proportion the filling out equally among all of them, and I don't have some that I'm like, oops, I ran out of filling. Oh, confused, can't tell if I'm playing or not playing with the recording. Okay, then we're going to roll them up and crimp the edges. Make a dumpling out of them. Seal it really good. Pan with ingredients. We're going to put them in. See, isn't she pretty? Put them in with the edge side down. That's 1, so 14 more to do. Well, actually there's another 15 because I got to do the blackberry ones too. Now, aren't they gorgeous? This is our little sauce. Put a little bit on each one of them. My video is running long, so I'll put some on each one of them and sprinkle a little bit of sesame seeds in 350-degree preheat oven. We're going to stick them in there to bake for about 45 minutes. But I've got to get moving so I get the blackberry ones made up. Going in to bake. Whew, be back to do the blackberries. Okay, you know the drill. I have to cut it in thirds, and each of the third has to be cut into 5 pieces because, as you saw, I've done this before, so I know how many it takes. It takes 15 to fill the pan. So these are a lot easier once I get them rolled out to their little dessert plate size. We're just going to put a pat of butter, a spoonful of sugar, a little bit of blackberries, and seal them up and put the glaze on. A little salt and sugar, like the same topping that I put on my biscotti mix on top of that. Put those in the bag. So Miss Martha's rocking and rolling now. I need a sip of Diet Coke. Gotta roll them out. Okay, there's 15 of them, trust me. They're spread all over the place. I just swap out that butter and get cold butter. Well, it's not butter, it's plant. Well, it is butter, but it's plant-based butter because we're vegan. From the refrigerator, because that one, they got too melty to slice. Go. We're going to put a pat of butter, plant-based butter, in every one. Okay. Pick back up. Just pause the camera. Wash my hands off. Whew. This spoon equals 2 tablespoons. So we're going to go through with the white sugar, top of the butter, all 15 of them. Okay, the reason I roll them all out is so I can proportion out and get equal amount of blackberries in every one. Looks like we're getting about 10 blackberries a dumpling. I'll put it back in there if it rolls off before I roll the crust. The dough. Whoops. Ooh, we gotta go to the trash and find that one before the Chihuahua gets it. Okay, you can roll them up just like you did with the mushroom. Pull it up from corner to corner to corner to corner. Pinch it all shut. Roll it over and seal it good. Put the sealed side down. And repeat with all of them, and then we'll put our syrup on and our topping. This is before their syrup and their topping. With that right on top. Okay. This is 3 tablespoons of the raw sugar and a half teaspoon of coarse sea salt. Sprinkle that on top like we're making biscottis. So they have a little crunch when they bake. Get it, everybody. Get it, Betty. Oh, heavy. How beautiful they look. Put them in the oven alongside the savory dumpling.